Québec, la belle province, the beautiful province. History has left this region of North America a legacy, the French language. It's a land of far-off rivers and vast forests. In Quebec, the immense expanses invite men and women to plunge into this wild realm, which is open to all. But one doesn't become a woodsman or trapper overnight.
I came here about 5 years ago and I just fell in love with the region. In Montreal, I was leading the life of a young artist, a kind of wildlife. Here, I discovered a world of freedom, adventure, and beauty.
Audrey Beauchemin succumbed to the call of the wild. It fascinates her, and she wants to preserve it. In Montreal, she studied art and business. Then she decided to settle in Mingani. The last frontier for all the Québécois, it's the most sparsely populated region on the northern coast of the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
They call Mingani the daughter of the waters. This is a land of water, if you can call it a land. It's a world in itself. You have the Gulf of St. Lawrence, all the rivers that flow into the Gulf. So, yes, you could consider Mingani an aquatic realm.
The silence of this vast, inaccessible territory is broken only by the hum of these old seaplanes. The interior of Mingani was unexplored for a long time. Audrey chose to live here to satisfy her thirst for adventure.
We're going to tackle the Magpie, one of the most beautiful rivers in the world, a magnificent treasure tucked away in the north of Mingani. We're going to have some fun on the river with a bunch of whitewater enthusiasts. And we'd really like to spread the word about this great river.
See the clouds in the sky while horizon fades away.
Charles, Eric, and Matthew, whitewater experts, are Audrey's rafting companions. These great northern expanses at the edges of the earth have drawn them like a magnet.
It's a long way off and time runs on, till time runs on, and the night grows rough. It's a long way off and trumpets all burst, and the drum comes first, and time runs on.
This place shows us the immensity of nature. It's a place where you cannot but take the time to live, to slow down, relax, observe, contemplate. That's really what we come looking for here. You can slow down the pace of life that we so often get caught up in. Always trying to be on top of things, doing this, doing that, rushing about, consuming. Here, life is slower, purer. You can focus on true values, real things, take things easier overall.
Finalement. It's a long way off and time runs on. You say time runs on and the night grows rough. It's a long way off and the trumpet all burst and the trumpet come first. Time runs on.
In a few weeks, it will be nearly impossible to organize such an operation. Winter, with its ice, wind, and cold, will grip the land. They had to transport 1 ton of equipment for this rafting expedition. The descent of the Magpie will take 3 days.
Once the boats are ready, we can enjoy the scenery, experience it, have some laughs, and a good time with the people here. We all love being on the river and the feeling we get, like we're discovering a new world because not many people come here, you know? It's the feeling of being in a new land, being the only people on Earth, if you would. And with good fellow travelers like these, it's great. So now we'll be loading the boats and we'll be off on our adventure.
This is the Magpie. The river runs down through Mingani for more than 250 kilometers, then spills into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. It's classed among the 10 most beautiful whitewater rivers in the world.
Of course, you feel a little stress when you see all the white water ahead. You have to concentrate, you want to get it right. It's a thrill. It's all about enjoyment in the end. We're out here to have fun. There's also the adrenaline. That's a healthy kick. Yeah, you go through a lot of different feelings. The Magpie is just magical from one end to the other. There are great boils.
And nice standing waves.
And nice standing waves, for sure. There's a path you have to take. You can't go upstream and skirt the problem, so to speak. As for the boils, you've got to charge through them. It's like life or a project you might have. You have to dare, face up to the challenges. That's what we're doing.
You have the river itself, plus there's everything all around. The gorge, with all the stunning beauty it offers us. We're always eager to discover something new.
Rafting down the Magpie has become a yearly ritual for this group of friends. For the past 2 years, the Magpie has been under threat by a project to build a hydroelectric dam. Audrey and her friends are among the most ardent defenders of this wild river. They're campaigning for the Magpie to be classed a biodiversity reserve so that it will continue in its present extraordinary setting.
Last year, we were at the lake. We heard a pack of wolves. We also saw a moose. We'll see what nature has in store for us this year. We're definitely in the wilderness. We don't really belong here. Nature here is unspoiled. It's her realm. The animals are at home here, so we have to respect them.
Par le respect.
Matthew is the one who knows the ins and outs of the river the best. He's been organizing expeditions like this for 10 years and has, in fact, named most of the rapids.
You could say that the Magpie River is still hardly used. When you land on the shore, you could almost imagine that you're the very first human being to set foot in these parts since the dawn of time. Seriously, that's what it really feels like. Yeah, there's something quite extraordinary about untouched nature. This is what we're looking for when we come here, the intimate contact with nature.
The group has been trying to promote the Magpie in order to better protect it. They're hoping that one day this river will become the symbol of Mingani's unspoiled wild nature, rather than just a tamed source of energy. Audrey lives in a village of 400 inhabitants close to the mouth of the river. With the association that she heads, she has gone all out to raise funds for a somewhat wild project on one of the Mingan Islands, the Île aux Perroquets, Parrot Island. The last lighthouse keeper left the island more than 40 years ago. But thanks to Audrey, the island is coming back to life after years of neglect. The restoration of the buildings on this little island began 3 years ago and has already cost $3 million. Audrey's project is to bring this remote island back to life. In a year, the island will welcome its first residents. Artists in search of inspiration or simple tourists, all are welcome, provided they're comfortable with solitude. Audrey is putting out all this effort in order to share this parcel of land with others. She has had to move mountains, search out willing hands, and convince the powers that be of the historical interest of this maritime heritage.
It's okay. I'm checking that the houses are shut up tight so nothing gets broken this winter with the strong winds. They can get up to 130 kilometers an hour. This one's okay, so we'll go check the others.
On fait le tour des maisons.
We renovated the lighthouse station, decked it out in its Sunday best, and it worked out well because we celebrated the 125th anniversary of the station this year. The first lighthouse was built in 1888. What better way to restore its prestige than to rejuvenate it with a complete overhaul? There's a conservation and a long-term maintenance project, which is what we're hoping for. To bring life back to the island in order to promote the maritime heritage, which belongs to all of us. Because lighthouses were the original traffic lights that enabled us to build a country. It really concerns all of us.
chaque fois que je viens, là, ça...
Every time I come here, it fires me up to keep working because we've been through trials and phases and challenges of all kinds.
À tous les niveaux, puis c'est un beau...
It's a wonderful project to see through to the end.
Il reste un an.
We have 1 year left to get this island in shape.
J'ai confiance.
I'm confident that it'll work. But I'm certainly not all alone. I'm one element among many. But let's say that I have a certain gift of persuasion for convincing people to come on board this project and to believe in it. That's my strong point.
Here, with her commitment for the protection of the Magpie River and the revival of the Île aux Perroquets, Audrey has found an inspiration for her life.
This is a great place to wander off, to be by yourself. Solitude takes getting used to. And it's a wonderful spot for learning how to live with nature and to refocus. So yes, this place is certainly tinged with solitude.
A
friend of mine lent me this chalet. I bought a piece of land in Magpie, and I want to build a cabin for myself. Have my own refuge on the coast, a place of my very own, where I can take refuge as long as I live.
Toute ma vie, finalement.
Oh, you didn't sing. You let me down, Salem.
Ça fait ouh, ouh.
I never have a day when I'm not glad to be here. The days start well, and they also finish well, of course. It's a great place to live.
Autumn, the time to recharge my batteries. I need this contact with nature. These are very special moments of life, and it's a great season for me. Every year, I look forward to this period. On a psychological level, it means getting away from the rat race. Everything becomes calm.
Michel Bellon is a trapper, a giant of a man who talks to trees and understands the language of the wild animals. The beaver trapping season has just opened. An age-old quest begins in the heart of the forests of Mauricie. Trapping is a way for Michel to reconnect with the ways of his ancestors and his childhood, which he spent with the Atikamekw Indians.
I come here once a year. It's like a trapper's pilgrimage. Like I have to go pay my respects to my old Indian guide to get his blessing for the trapping season. I spent my whole childhood out in the forest with Indians, and this is the continuity.
This Indian face, frozen in stone, was carved by time and the elements, like a reminder that these forests were once the domain of the First Nations of North America. Michel grew up in a family of loggers. In close contact with Indian families, he was initiated into the secrets of the forest. In the 1940s and 50s, 30 to 40,000 lumberjacks would head up into the woods every fall. Those men hold an important place in Quebec's history. They lived a hard life. Isolation and the bitter cold were their daily lot, with 5 to 6 meters of snow during the winter months and temperatures that often plunged to 30 below zero. Those workers had an incredible thirst for life, and they are a source of pride for an entire generation of Quebecois. For a long time, log driving was the only way to get the cut timber to the mills. At the end of the winter, when the rivers thawed, forests of logs were floated downstream. The log drivers worked in extreme conditions, doing a dangerous job. They would transport the logs, the pitoon, hundreds of kilometers through the forest. It would take 20 to 30 days to reach the shores of the St. Lawrence River. The logs supplied the paper industry. In Canada, in the 1960s, Quebec produced nearly half the country's total paper output. Michel, one of Quebec's last trappers, is a living testimony to a bygone world. Now he's heading into the heart of the forest, where he'll spend several weeks on his own. Trapping is an excuse for him to get away from the world and to go back in time to relive the life of a woodsman.
Every fall, we do an aerial survey of the trapping territory, which covers 150 square kilometers, a very large area. And it gives me a good overview of my whole territory in just a few hours. It allows me to pick out all my trapping spots. I localize all the little ponds and all the beaver dams, where I can then go trapping during my winter stay down there.
Quebec at the beginning of the 20th century was the birthplace of seaplanes in Canada. The early pilots were true adventurers. They mapped these boundless expanses. Even today, it's only from a plane that you can fully appreciate the immensity of the Canadian forest. Michel has lived several lives. He was a logger, restaurateur, owner of a hunting and fishing reserve, businessman, cabin builder, and even buffalo raiser. He knows all the secrets of the forest and is not afraid of bears or wolves. After an active professional life, he decided that every autumn he would take the trapper's trail here into his tract of nature.
I just heard a moose. It's very close by. I heard it breaking branches. Deer, moose, and bears are certainly not animals you trap. You live with them. They're all around us during the trapping season. They always take you by surprise. They appear like phantoms. They look you over, and then they move on. The wild animals come keep us company. They greet us as the masters of the premises.
At 67, Michel is keeping the promise he once made to himself, to live according to the rhythm of the forest, on his own, in a raw, rugged world resonating with silence.
Trappers and woodsmen have always used the lakes and rivers to get around. You can cover vast distances on the water. You can spot the animals on the shore. You can fish and carry 300 to 400 kilos of equipment. The canoe's a silent vehicle, easy to transport from one lake to another. The canoe has been the vehicle of the forest and of trappers for thousands of years.
A few miles from his cabin, Michel has pitched a prospector's tent. This will be his base camp for his winter beaver trapping. Back in the pioneering days of New France, trappers were known as white Indians and traded in furs. Following in their footsteps is Michel's way of paying homage to those woodsmen of the far north.
For we woodsmen, it's not a dream. It's really a whole upbringing from childhood. It has given us this self-sufficiency, this strength to live in the forest and to adapt to our surroundings, using the means of our ancestors. It gives me an inner force. And once you've experienced it, it becomes a need.
Michel is preparing his beaver traps. He still uses pine resin to mask his human scent and the smell of iron, a technique he learned from his Indian mentors. As if he were trying to be Quebec's last trapper and carve his ancestors' lore into wood, he has become an expert in building birch bark canoes with only the most rudimentary tools.
This is a tool made by the Indians. They used it for making canoes. One of my friends on the Manouan reservation gave it to me, 40 years ago. It means a lot to me. It's like working with a memento in my hands. It's full of memories of my canoe-building apprenticeship.
The adventurers of the New World were attracted by beaver fur well before the gold rush. Those trappers set out in quest of Canada's brown gold, and furs made the fortunes of many a trapper. Tens of millions of animals were hunted down. In the 19th century, Canada's national animal was driven to the brink of extinction due to the explosion of the fur trade. At nightfall, Michel sets a few traps on the dams he spotted from the plain.
Beavers have to swim in search of food. When the water level drops, they'll notice that there's a break in their dam, and they'll come back to patch it up. And that's when you can trap the beaver.
To prepare for the winter, beavers build veritable dikes that serve both as food pantries and protection against predators. These dams made of branches can flood large areas of forest. Michel traps to maintain the ecological balance of his territory. He also sells the pelts, which at present are worth $50 apiece.
The sound of a branch breaking or a movement, nothing more natural for a moose. When a 300 to 400 kilo animal is on the move, it's natural. An animal moving doesn't make the same sound as a car. He won't get as upset by a branch breaking. For him, it's just a signal of another animal approaching. And often, it'll come out and take a look. It's a very curious animal. There's no secret about it. For someone new at this, it's a lifelong task getting to know the animals, their habits, their language, their movements. You have to live it to understand that deep sense.
Out in the woods, time passes differently than elsewhere. With age, Michel can be quite happy with just the aroma of dusk.
In a few weeks, there'll be 50 to 20 centimeters of snow on the ground. It'll be a different world, the world in winter. The animals move around a lot, and the trapper's work gets a lot harder. The lakes will be frozen over. We'll have to use snowshoes. For us, it's a season when the work is harder. We woodsmen were born with something in our genes that you just can't take away from us. Our autonomy, our force to live in the forest. This is what I come looking for every year. People often say that it's a lifestyle, but it is, in fact, our soul, our very life.
In the Carabinier family, we have Alain, a Swiss who emigrated to Canada 30 years ago, and his son, Antoine. They are just two of the members of a surprising family tribe, the Cirque Alphonse.
Well, sometimes you have to take a risk. The circus is the circus. It's not like the movies. No, here we practice and practice, and eventually it works. We'll get it.
You can never give up. Practice makes perfect. Sometimes it just takes longer than others.
The Cirque Alphonse is the brainchild of Antoine Carabinier. Timber, their latest show, is inspired by the legends and lore of the lumberjacks and logging camps.
We wanted to stay close to our roots. We were born here in this magnificent spot. And there's also the music. We grew up with it. Our friends played traditional music. We wanted to stay close to all that. Close to Quebec, close to our Quebecois roots, which are being forgotten a bit because there aren't many documents that have survived. It's a very oral culture. We wanted to do a show that would evoke Quebec's past, the lumberjacks, the evenings around the fire, everything about those old days.
Timber resonates through all the forests of Quebec. Timber, the cry of the lumberjack just as the tree is falling. The Cirque Alphonse was born in one of these cabins during the dead of winter. Alain, his daughter Julie, Antoine, and Joe portray the life of toil and isolation of thousands of men and women in the logging camps.
We live in Lanaudière. They do a lot of music, the traditional music here. We wanted to use that art along with the circus. Well, now in the circus show they wanted to do, they said they wanted songs about the life in the old lumber camps. Well, he told me, try to find people to tell you how things were back then. So I traveled far and wide to meet the old-timers who had actually worked in the lumber camps.
Roger Baudouin, a veteran of the old Canadian logging days, may be 97, but he still hasn't lost his touch. He is still the best at sharpening godon d'art, the long two-handed saws that are just as much of a legend as the lumberjack's red checked shirt.
Hello, Mr. Baudouin. How are you?
Fit as a fiddle.
Long time no see, huh? Watch your hands there.
The godondards have long been replaced by mechanical saws. But the acrobats of Cirque Alphonse have found other uses for these razor-edged blades than just cutting wood.
We cut them during the show to prove that they're sharp. Then, since the saws are long and flexible, we bend them around and jump through them instead of using cardboard hoops.
I just saw something I thought I would never see in my life. The guy is sitting on the floor, and he takes the saw and he swings it around like this. And these other guys jump over it in both directions, doing pirouettes and twists and flips. They're nuts. They must have a death wish. It's beyond me.
We wanted the show to be connected with the local and regional roots. They used to do a lot of logging here back then. In the winter, they'd cut. Then in the spring, they'd float the logs down the rivers. They call that la drave in French, the log drive. They'd walk right out on the logs when they had to break up a log jam. Then it would all float downriver to the mill to make paper. They call that la pitoune.
It was a quirk of fate that led Alain to show business. In 1968, he left Switzerland in a little Citroën 2 chevaux and headed for Kathmandu. That voyage lasted 10 years. Then he went on to visit Australia, Japan, Alaska, and South America. In Ecuador, he met Louise, a backpacker from Quebec. Together, they led a bohemian life made up of freedom and shared dreams. A good many years later, they were bitten by the performance bug.
My fire's going to take. What's the matter, Louise? So what about this tour? Where are you taking us?
We are leaving soon. We leave the 28th.
We're not going to come back with all the gear. Go through customs twice?
No, we'll stay on the road. Then we'll have ourselves a little vacation.
In a few days, the Cirque Alphonse will leave for a 4-month tour.
I never could have imagined that one day I'd be doing this. Well, it's because Antoine went to circus school, and for my 60th birthday, he wanted to do a show because he knows that I like performing, and it turned out pretty well. Then he said, let's do another one, but more serious. They created Timber. Everyone chipped in with their ideas, and this is what we came up with. Now we're touring the world with it.
The Carabinier family relates the myth of the pioneers and adventurers of the far north. Their show, Timber, evokes in a light comic vein the isolation of those lumberjacks, the rugged job they had to do in their everyday life deep in the forests without the slightest comforts. Antoine and Joe are the acrobats of the troupe. The Cirque Alphonse takes a fresh look at the language of the forest and twists the conventions of circus shows. Before a long tour in the USA, Europe, and Australia, Antoine has gathered the extended Cirque Alphonse family. Brother and sister, parents, grandparents, and friends. This whole group lives to the rhythm of the circus arts.
We really have to make a connection with everybody. It's a big part of all this, even with friends in the show, but who aren't part of our family. Everybody has to connect with everybody else. It's really a force that we have. Over the years, we've gotten to know each other on stage and touring together, which is quite another story. Our families don't usually come with us on tour. It's a unique experience, unique and wonderful. It's not just doing the shows, it's also everyday life. It's above all the camaraderie. That's the beauty of it.
Until they open their new show, Barbu, loosely translated as bearded, the Cirque Alphonse will continue to perform their poetic and humorous portrait of the great legend of the Québécois lumberjacks.